Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Tuesday, 21 October. I'm your host Daniel, and today we're going to talk about Goldman Sachs has flagged the risk of disruption in supply of rare earth metals and minerals. Zelensky has painted the meeting with Trump as a success and talked about new Patriot systems. And President Trump and Australia's Anthony Albanese have signed a critical mineral agreement to counter China. So kind of rounding out the first story. So firstly, Goldman Sachs flagged mounting risk of global supply chain issues of rare earth and other critical minerals, emphasizing China's dominance in mining and refining and outlining challenges of other nations seeking to build independent supply chains. China expanded export curbs on rare earths on October the 9th, adding 5 new elements and extra scrutiny for semiconductor users ahead of an expected summit between the leaders Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. So what? This trade war is getting very significant, and the control and reliance on China for key earth minerals is, as we'll talk about in a later story, becoming a major issue for the United States and Western powers. Basically, the West has no refining capacity, is what I understand the key issue to be, while these rare earth minerals aren't actually that rare and are actually found in lots of different countries. China is the main place to refine them down. So, yeah, needing to build some Western supply chains around the refining of these minerals so that we can use them in high-tech stuff. But yeah, definitely a big issue that everyone needs to be paying attention to, because if you don't want your iPhone to cost 6 times the price, then you best start worrying. And next, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky painted his meeting last week with Donald Trump as a success that yielded progress on acquiring new air defense systems, a contrast from the reports that Trump berated him with obscenities in the White House. In comments made on the media on Sunday, initially off the record, but authorized for publication on Monday, the Ukrainian leader described Trump's message at the meeting, which ended with Trump calling for a ceasefire with forces in place, as positive. So what? I think it's likely that Zelensky's playing the game here, playing the game that everyone in the world is currently playing, in which you basically just kiss Donald Trump's ass and call him the man and hope that he gives you what he wants, because pushing against him is not beneficial for anybody. I was reading the reports in the weekend about how the meeting went according to US sources, and it seemed pretty bad. It seemed that once again Trump had flip-flopped on how this war's going. He's back on Russia's side. Shocking, after talking to Putin, that suddenly he's parroting Russian talking points. Who would have seen that coming? Yeah. So I don't know. It's a bit rough. I kind of agree with the idea that the conflict should be frozen in place, but for this to happen, Ukraine needs to get some significant support and protection guarantees from not just the US but Europe as well, because it's highly likely that any pause in the conflict without security guarantees is just giving Russia reprieve from this war so that it can rebuild its military to try again in 5-10 years. Yeah, that's kind of the key takeaway. The key issue isn't really the land at this point, it's security. Because, yeah, I don't know. That's how I see this conflict currently. I think while Ukraine isn't winning, Russia isn't winning either. I feel like they're both currently losing in their own ways. The Russian economy is absolutely decimated. The destruction of their energy infrastructure is significant and is only getting more significant as Ukraine becomes more skilled in targeting these refineries with more and more drones. But Ukraine is slowly losing ground to Russia. However, it is very slow and at a massive cost for Russia. So yeah, not really a win for either side, to be fair. And lastly, US President Donald Trump and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese signed a critical mineral agreement aimed at countering China on Monday at a meeting marked by Trump's jab at the Australian envoy to the United States over past criticism. China loomed large at the first White House summit between Trump and Albanese, with the US president also backing a strategic nuclear-powered submarine deal with Australia to bolster security in the Indo-Pacific region. So what? I mean, this clearly goes back to the first story we talked about, right? With China having absolute control over the supply chains of rare earth minerals. While getting them from Australia is all well and good, the refining capacity is a massive issue. It's actually something that Australia could look into doing themselves, which would be an interesting turn for the Australian economy. Just a random thought for any Australian listeners. Go start a rare earth refining business. You could become very rich if you could somehow figure it out. But yeah, getting the minerals, not really the issue. From my understanding, refining the minerals is the big issue. So yeah, maybe not the be-all, end-all that this is cracked up to be. The moving forward in the nuclear power submarine deal, very good for Australia. Very expensive, but could be great when they finally come into service. However, from my understanding, they might be a little bit too late. If the Taiwan conflict is the reason we're trying to get them into service in Australia, but hopefully not. Touch wood, right? Anyway, thank you for listening to the Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you.